Hey y'all, if you're just cruising YouTube looking for a guy working on a truck, welcome to this. It's my 2001 regular cab short bed project. It's been lowered 4 inches in the front with spindles and springs, axle flip in the rear with a 6-inch drop. I just relocated the shocks. I'm gonna show you how I did that. It's got a 5.3 out of my other pre-runner project truck, which has a 06 5.3 with a close ratio 4L60 they came out of. I'm going back with a 4L80 and a crate engine 5.3, 450 horse, 420 torque. I'm building like a Chevy Raptor out of my pre-runner project. But let's finish the RCSB project first so I can get this sold to get money to do the other project. This is a 14 bolt out of a Chevy Heavy Half that I had to slightly modify the purchase on so I can modify my flip kit. It's a 14 bolt with 373 gears, and it is 4 inches narrower than the rear end that came out of the truck, and the spring perches are 1 inch narrower. So I had narrower. Now, it's a skinnier axle. That's all I'm trying to say. So that being said, I had to modify my flip blocks. Everything's just as strong as it should be, and I had to modify this axle to accept the new flip blocks. Let's go ahead and put it all together. The axle tubes on this Heavy Half are 3.5 inch axles, maybe 4 inch axle tubes, probably 3.5s. But the purchase I had purchased, 3 inch. So I had to go ahead and grind these out, and then I had to notch them so they would still fit through the other perch on the axle and keep everything lined up. So what the split does is it catches the part that I didn't cut off to center the block, and at the same time bottoms out on the block, on the perch, giving a secure bolt in, just like if I would have bought it to fit on an axle like that one that it was supposed to fit on in the first place. So I adapted the block to sit a 1/2 inch out on either side, giving me the true bolt-in track for my leaf springs to put this underneath the truck. So I'm gonna go pop this together, we'll roll it underneath the truck, and then we can get to measuring for shocks. With the perch already on the spring, I'm gonna go ahead and slide the whole spring under the axle. This way I can just roll the whole thing under the truck. Then we have to deal with brakes once it's in the truck. But kind of get it about where it's got to go. This is how I did the other one. This will just kind of backwards on the block. This will just lift up into place. That can just kind of lift the jack stands up to put tension on it. It's pretty much self-centered, and just got to drop the bolts and the plate in. So I cut off what I needed to let my axle bolts pass over, slid the flip block over on the spring to get me lined up to get where I needed. So this plate can sit right where it needs to. It's a 1/2 inch over when I drop my bolts in. Yeah, I'm about 1/4 inch off the brakes, plenty clearance. It all just kind of fits together. Very nice. It's tight, and it's exactly how I want it. And I'm going to loosely kind of put this together so when I get it underneath the truck, all this will have a little bit of wiggle to it, and I can line up these leaf springs. So I had to massage my plate a little bit, a little modified there. This is a square corner, and this one's got just a little bit ground off on the top sides compared to the bottoms to get around that brake backer. Can't wait to get this back on the lift so I can stop crawling around on the floor. I remember these days. Make sure them joints are down. Finger tight until you get everything situated. We're not going to lock it down hard just yet, just because this is not its final resting place. The springs have to kind of shimmy back and forth just a hair to get everything lined up right. but with everything kind of started, I'm gonna go ahead and give these a little wrap to tighten them up. Right, well, we're ready to roll this under the truck now. All right, so let's see if we're gonna fit. I'm sure there's better ways to do this, but when you're working by yourself, you gotta do what you gotta do. The pollen has gotten me, y'all. This frame is so coated with pollen. I'm not sure if it picks it up on camera, but man, does it look horrible. Oh, they both went in. That is awesome. Check this out. Or both of my springs. With the little math I did, getting those blocks cut, they fell right into place. Bolt them in at the hangers and put the shackles on the back. So when you cut a bolt, I don't know if you know this or not, but sharing it anyway, and you had to cut the end off, still hot, always put the nut on first. Put the nut on first, and then you give it a cut, and when you back the nut off, straighten your threads, ready to go. So this is the side with the gas tank, and the bolt's very long from the factory. So all I'm gonna do is drop this nut down in here where I can actually grab it and slide the bolt through the front side. Back it out some so where I can get my hand back there. Because you can get a hand back there, but the bolt was too long from the factory to make it line up on anything. So with the front loosely in, now I'm going to jack up the axle with the jack and put the back in. And with everything loose, then I'll tighten up the U-bolts for the final time on the bottom, on the axle flip, and then shackles and hangers. But this will get me in the ballpark to measure for shocks, so I can get those on order today. Now, how am I going to get my springs on the top side up here where the shackles are supposed to go? That's a good question. I got to let the front back down, put the back on, and then jack the front up. Did it backwards. So I took the bolt out the front. Let me see if I can just kind of put it on top. There we go. Push it back. So I got my bolts through and it tightened up just enough to where everything's kind of loose. I just want it all loose. And then once I get the shackles anchored, I'll go ahead and tighten the U-bolts, or I'll tighten the leaf springs and then go ahead and tighten the U-bolts, and everything will be solid. Then I can measure it for shocks from there on. So I'm gonna see if I can slowly drop this in place. Good old freight harbor jack is good for carefulling on this. Because the springs are all loose, I can really just pull and adjust this in place where I want it to go. The other side's already in. There we go. Look when a plane comes together. I mean, really, that was pretty good. So I'm just going to let it hang now because the axle is on leaf spring flip blocks. Everything's sitting on these springs now. I can go ahead and tighten it all up in place and it's good to go. 21 millimeter. I believe the fronts are larger, they're 24s. Yep, 24 and a 15/16. I can just drop this in from the top. Hold it. Nice. So this is the most this suspension will ever hang, and I can measure for shocks. I already ordered my shock brackets. They're not here yet. I can at least pull a tape measure and see what this shock needs to be and order the one for the other side. Everything moves nice and easy. This is great. Yeah, this is great. Coming together, y'all. Coming together. Man, I'm excited, dude. This is awesome. The pollen look crazy. So everything's in, torqued, tightened. My blocks worked out beautifully. They still bottom out on the perch and split it so they can't move, along with the U-bolts. That guy's getting painted gloss black. Want to pop it off. Yeah, the blocks are straight. My little adapter worked out good. I bought perches. Originally, I was just going to cut the perches off the axle and put them on the underside, re-weld them. But I figured doing the blocks would save me from having to correct from the pinion angle because they're already built in. The back of the block was taller than the front of the block, correcting the pinion angle. So when it lowered, to bring the pinion down in the front, so it'd be more of a straight shot to the transmission. It's a bolt on. It's awesome. I like it. Then we got a 14 bolt heavy half rear end, 373 gears instead of a 10 bolt with 342s or 323s. Now it's time to measure for shocks and get on the brakes. This come out great. So with the axle hanging in a completely relaxed position, if I go from hole to hole, the center where it meets, I got 19 inches down. And that's great. They make 19-inch long shocks. I'm going to order some Bilstein. They sell them by the length, by the inch, basically. And now we're going to let it down on the ground and see what the ride height is, and then measure the less of that fully compressed so we can see the full length of the shock that we need. I like it like that. That's awesome. That is great. So I was 19 extended. At ride height, I'm 14. And I can go up about 4 more inches before I bottom out of the frame. So I need shocks that go about between 9 and 19. So that drive shaft is lined up. It's hanging by a rubber cord right now, but that pinion angle is pointing straight at the transmission. It's got that 3 degrees that you're looking for, and that C notch. They are perfect. I mean, it's like I measured it or something. This is coming out freaking awesome, and I'm super pumped. I mean, just to show off the work with no bed on it is awesome. Just how clean everything is. And in the front, it's all nice and tucked. The rear axle is back on, and the shocks are measured. I'm going inside to order them right now. The shock perches are on their way. So it's like a week later in this video, and I've just been waiting for parts to show up. I had ordered some shock brackets, and thank God that the guys behind me are done re-roofing their house, because now I can get back to this. Like y'all wanted to hear a video with a bunch of banging the whole time. So here's where I'm at. I got the Bilstein 5125 custom ordered by length shock sitting in the correct stock location. And over here, I went and cut the bracket off the frame and the axle so I can take this new shock bracket, figure out where it's got to go exactly, somewhere in this area. And this is off of a Ford F-250. It bolts on with a U-bolt on the axle on those trucks, but on this one we're going to weld it. So what I'm going to do to get the right length, I'm going to hang this off the backside like this, bolt it in place, and then since this one's a little longer, so I'm going to put it on the backside of the axle so I can get the same trajectory where the bolt lines up for the shock. So I'm going to measure a little bit, weld a little bit, and wait for the drive shaft to get back from the drive line place I brought it to. Had to get 2 inches taken off of it. We'll bolt that back in, put the truck on the ground, and, you know, bring nobody looking, we'll do a no bed burnout. Now let's see what my buddy baling wire can do, because I don't have a U-bolt that big. It's kind of strange. So I just go around the backside, I guess. Kind of twist it, give it something to hold on to. Because this is just to mock it up. It'll hold it in place until I can get it welded where I want it to go. So this is lined up now to where I can get the axle height the same on both sides. 8 3/4 from the stop to the bottom of the perch, and over here I'm 9. So let's go ahead and shrink that up. There we go. 8 3/4 to the bottom of the axle perch, right there. So just notice that these holes are staggered. They're twisted just a little bit, and you can really see it when I put the bolt through, how it's kicked at an angle to throw it to the corner, to get it to line up where it's supposed to up here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just lay the shock in. So I got my upper bracket. It's gonna mount for mock-up. Sit this up here where it's gotta go. And once I'm happy with everything, I'll clean the paint off of the axle where it's going to go, and I'll make it one solid piece. So we are just about right where we left off, except it's a week later now. It's been 2 weeks making this video. I haven't had a chance to post anything in 2 weeks, so apologize for that. If you're watching this after the time frame when it's been released, it really won't make any sense. But for the people that keep up with my channel, this is 2 weeks later. I had to order a right side bracket. They make rights and lefts. I ordered a left and a right. They sent me two lefts. Sorry, they sent me two lefts. So I had to order one more right. It's $10, whatever. It's Ford F-250, but it's an axle hanging mount bracket for a shock. I got everything mocked up. I got my clamp from a welder on. I'm about to make the bracket. I'm about to tack the bracket on the axle so I can go ahead and tack the bracket on the frame, remove the shock, make it all one piece, and put it all back together. Also got my drive shaft back from the driveline shop that shortened it 2 inches. So the whole rear end assembly all can go in and flow how it's supposed to. I'm gonna go ahead and make this one piece, and hopefully I can get this video up by this Friday. All right, so the bottom is 6.5 inches off the, off the spring, and the top is, let's see, 5 1/4. Needs to be 5 3/4. So I'll just take that, move this little guy over this way to 5 3/4. Now the top is gonna ride just like the other side. So I'm just gonna tack this stuff on so it stays put, and then I'll make it all solid, because I don't want to do a whole lot of heavy welding around that aluminum shock. Now to remove the shock, make it all one piece, reinstall the shock, and then I can grab the drive shaft out the back of the Gangsta Burb, slide it in there, tighten it up, put it on the ground. Can't go nowhere yet though, because I still have to do the brake line. That might not be this video. Definitely next, I'm gonna hook up a line lock and run a new line to this axle and have to redo the axle lines. So let's at least try to get the shock put on and the drive shaft put in so I can put it back down on the ground. Best shocks ever. So I got this tacked on. I can go ahead and remove my little piece of baling wire. Let me go ahead and put some frame paint back on this axle. Make this one piece. I mean, that's gonna weld nicely. And I got the upper bracket. I put this box up here so I can get the same amount of clearance up top as what's on the other side. And I'll just go ahead and weld this. Make it one piece. It's nice and tacked and pretty solid. I gotta have to lift and lower the lift so I can get to the bottom and the top side of it comfortably and welded well. I got both equally oriented shocks on the back of this regular cab. It's gonna be pretty cool. I'm gonna go ahead and weld this. I'm not gonna bore y'all with a whole lot of welding on this video, and see if I can get this thing up by Friday. Well, the bottom's welded. Didn't record it, but it's welded. And let's go ahead and do the top now before my battery dies again. Battery died again. Had to put the old sleeves on. It was popping on me. Got a little flux cord. One day I'm gonna step my game up. I just gotta get a little money coming in first. Then I'll get a freaking TIG welder. But for right now, it's old school dual MIGs and I have to do the trick. And it does it. It does a good job. That's the difference in being comfortable and not comfortable when you're welding. So about the neighbor's dog, I can't help it. They put him outside when they get home in the afternoon. He just barks for hours until they let him in. So now that the shock brackets are welded on, I'm gonna let them cool a little bit and put a little bit of frame paint on them. Then we'll go ahead and mount the shock, and I can put the drive shaft in and put it on the ground. So that's using a Ford F-250 shock mount because they're $10. The Chevy ones are $50. they just hold a shock up. And I got the same spacing. These up here I got as a pair for I think 10 bucks. No, 20 bucks for the pair. And that was $15. That's what it was. So I got another leftover to do another one. But there's a shock mount upper, letting the paint dry. There's a shock mount lower. We'll let that dry and we'll reinstall the other shock like that shock. Slip the drive shaft in so I can get this thing edited so y'all can watch it. That's why I ain't welded with it on there. Everything's dry, paint's dry. You call that a win, that's pretty solid, it hurts your hand. Pop some bolts in it. I got a few extra washers to kind of play with the shim because it's got a little wiggle in it. Put 4 washers in the top, either side of the shock and either side of the bolt, because torque displacement is key. So using a 1/2-inch bolt, don't lose what you got. All right. Yeah, and I got room for another one on the other side. Perfect. There we go. So that took care of all the slack. I just need to put a nut on the back side of that. And kind of the same thing. When you roll it, it's got a little bit of wiggle. And I'll do the same thing with the washers 2 and 2. So this axle is a 14 bolt out of a Chevy Heavy Half. They made those, 60s, 70s, and 80s, I believe. But it's a 14 bolt axle. I think it's a 9.5 inch. So it's a little more robust than the 8.5 that came factory. We are shimmed. So everything is now nice and tight. My paint's not exactly dry yet. I just left a fingerprint. But go ahead and put the nut on the back side of these. Oh, here it is bolted on. Very stock looking, much like the other stock side. I wish I had room to orient the shocks forward because that's how the spring kind of tilts. It's bolted solid in the front and the back has the shackle to swivel. So the springs naturally swivel forward. But both shocks are in the same place. I know it really doesn't matter, but aesthetically it looks awesome because once it's all bolted together solid, the shocks just absorb the impact of the springs. But now that they're both behind the springs, it really shouldn't make a difference in ride quality, but it makes a whole lot of difference in how it looks. And that looks like it's supposed to. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide a drive shaft in, bolt it on, and then we'll be ready to do the line lock next week. And the axle needs brake lines, and I'm gonna install the line lock, prime the system, then we can start doing the body work, put the bed on it. Went ahead and got the shocks bolted on. Had to go to the hardware store and find some nuts for my bolts. I was gonna use some nylocks, but the bolt just comes to the end. So I went and bought some of the ones with the locking part built onto the nut of the bolt. So we got everything fits just perfect. And now the drive shaft. Went and had 2 inches cut off and rebalanced. They added a little extra weight right here and they cut 2 inches off the bottom side. Because when you drop it and it picks everything up, it moves everything forward at the same time. So put the drive shaft back in so I can get inside and get this video edited for y'all to watch. I got my straps already hanging on my joint. Truck's in the air so I can rotate this however it needs to go. Dropping my box on my head. Some body accessories in this box right here. All right. Went and dropped this off last week at the guys at North Lake Driveline. A couple $100 later, we have a balanced 2-inch shortened, nicely welded drive shaft. And with my measurements correct, since I can't turn the drive shaft, I'll turn the yoke. Oh, that's cool. This yoke doesn't require the lock pins to pull those out. You pop off the copper retainers. Grab a screwdriver. So the copper retainer here, I'll show you this yoke's got like 2 little teeth that this is going to sit into. And the copper retainer is no longer necessary for this installation on this rear axle. So I'm going to just pop that off of there. Save those guys for later because you never know. Put those up there. Put this back on the bottom very carefully. This is a greasable U-joint. And pull it back a little bit out the transmission. And this pops on nice and easy. Quick trip to AutoZone later. Had a little issue. These are off my 2001 factory axle. These are $7 a piece at the Zone. Got me some Dorman. Fitch GM. Says U-joint repair kit. I didn't know U-joint in the box, but it does come with 2 new bolts and a strap. The yoke on this differential is different. The strap's just a half a hole off. That's going to be the difference in me being able to bolt the drive shaft into the new yoke. It's new to the truck. So that means I can take all this old hardware and put it back on the other axle so I can sell it. And look at that. It fits. And the new bolts are also, well, that's the one. I'll go ahead and tighten this up the rest of the way. We put a truck on the ground and see if the drive shaft was shortened enough. I had it shortened 2 inches. And I had about a 3/4 of an inch pullback out of the transmission. So I want to kind of jump on the frame, see if I can hear any transmission noises like the yoke hitting the inside of the transmission or bottoming out on the output shaft. Tighten this up and drop the truck back down on the ground. The new drive shaft has been cut down. It's installed. And the reason I was able to take those clips out is this yoke actually has those divots on it that stop the caps from sliding out with the new U-joint straps on it. So we can put this down on the ground and kind of jump up and down on it. See if we can hear the yoke inside the transmission. If everything's quiet, we're going to send it. I know it doesn't make a performance difference, but it looks so much better. It might make a little performance difference. I'm not sure. However, let's see if I can hear any driveline noises. When I did this before, it was a lot harder and I could actually get the springs to bottom out, but with these shocks, no, I can try. I'm 300 pounds. Yo, that's a wind. Get this off of here. Check this out. Here we are. Rear-oriented shocks. Decent little weld. And the drive shaft installed in pinion angle. Perfect. That's gonna be all I can do in this week. This video has been 2 weeks in the making, just trying to get parts in to make this happen. I'm gonna tackle a line lock and get the rear brakes hooked up next week for next week's video. Hang in there with me, it's gonna get better than this. Appreciate y'all watching Modify. Catch you next week. Later.